Good evening. Welcome to the Kam Johal show. It's Thursday night, so here we are again. I have a wonderful guest for you today, who was here this morning on our breakfast show in Punjabi. So I hope you've all had a great week. So without further ado, my guest today is none other than Gurmair Singh. Gurmair, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Sat Sri Akal, everybody.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you.
Good. So you came all the way from Cardiff?
Yes.
Another country, in fact.
It is, exactly.
Yes. Do you guys consider yourself part of us, or are you like separate nation altogether?
We are a separate nation. We're a separate country.
Yeah.
But we're all part of the Great Britain that we are.
And you have your own flag and everything, don't you?
We do. Our own flag,
Fabulous.
our own language. So we did it in Punjabi this morning.
Yes.
In English this evening.
Yes.
And now I'm going to say Shamai Sitoiti. So it's trilingual now. So I just said hello in Welsh. How are you doing?
Did you? Is that? You sure you didn't swear?
No.
Good.
Promise. No swearing. No swearing. That's all right.
Wonderful to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, we obviously met last night and had a fabulous business meeting. And this morning we did the show in Punjabi. And so now really we want to hear your story.
Okay.
I'm very, very interested since you contacted me. And so you're third generation British, which is unusual because a lot of second generation. So your grandparents were actually born in this country, weren't they?
Yes.
So where did they, and then the other part of your story that's quite unusual is that you're Sikhs, but you hail from Kashmir rather than the Punjab in terms of where your family originates from. So tell us about that, and have you been to Kashmir, and do you have any memories of that, and how do you think it differentiates from the usual backstory of being born and raised in the Punjab at some point?
Well, with regard to that point, I'll be frank. I haven't had much direct experience of it due to the fact that obviously I was born in this country, as was my dad and my grandfather.
Yes.
But I've been to Mansouri.
Uh-huh.
I've been to India 8 times, fortunately.
Yeah.
And if you look at just that as an area, as a separate town, the beauty is amazing. It's so picturesque.
Yes.
But the entire area is just so ravaged by the internal warfare, so on and so forth. You've got religious divide, cultural divide, and there seems to be an amalgam of individuals who are within the area. They're just creating divides, just for the sake of it, basically.
But that part of the world, at the foothills of the Himalayas, is such beautiful country, isn't it?
Yes.
In terms of its natural beauty.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame that all this conflict is stopping us from enjoying that.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. If you look at it, India. I was reading stats recently that the Golden Temple, Harmandir Sahib, is the most visited.
That's correct.
Tourist site in the world.
Yes.
Beat the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah,
beat the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Everything.
So if you look at that, India as a country, I would regard myself as Punjabi, a Welsh Punjabi, but India as a country, it's got so much to offer, but we only see maybe 15 or 20% of it, because people who go to India, even people who are individuals who are born and brought up in the UK but are of Indian origin, whether they be Punjabi, Gujarati, Marathi, wherever their ancestors hail from, they go to India, they do a few of the tourist sites, and then they at the end they go, okay, I'll just have a bit of culture thrown in, and that's it. Do they really see the real India? If we went to Punjab, did we see the Asli Punjab? That's where I like to go.
Yeah. The other thing is, of course, we live in a tiny little country.
Yeah.
And then that tiny little country really is 3 countries, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right? So I don't think, we appreciate the vastness of a United States or of India. Exactly. In 2019, I was fortunate enough to go and spend 10 days in South India.
Okay.
As you said, so diverse, so different to what we're used to in the Punjab.
Yeah.
Even culturally and the way the people are. So a beautiful, beautiful part of India. Very fortunate to have that pleasure of spending those 10 nights there. And it's an area that I definitely would want to go back to. But I think the problem is that, especially as you said, those that are born here and perhaps travel out to Europe and not much further afield, I don't think you'd realise the vastness. And India is lots of different countries that came together.
Exactly.
So they're even more diverse than somewhere like the United States.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. Which part of South India did you visit?
Tamil Nadu, went up to Chennai. So we did about 1,000 kilometers, 6 hotels in 10 nights.
Wow.
And some of the temples, going back to the 6th and 7th centuries, absolutely incredible. Saw a medieval castle going back to the 3rd century. It's an incredible history.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. So yeah, had that fantastic pleasure, and then had the buzz of, Chennai.
Of course, yeah.
And none of the D of the Punjab, and everybody actually drives on the right side of the road.
Yeah, okay.
Which was very unusual to see in India, because you think it's all like that if you go to the Punjab, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's road signs count for nothing in Punjab.
What are those?
Exactly. There you go.
So you're 3rd generation British.
Yes.
So I understand your grandparents came. Your great grandparents.
Great grandparents, yeah.
Came to England. What year do you know?
So they came towards the mid 1940s.
Okay.
Mid to late 1940s originally.
Yeah.
And my great grandfather came over as an engineer initially.
Right.
Then, with my grandfather, some of his siblings were actually born in India, but he was born within the UK.
Right.
And then obviously from that point they set up home here, in London, in Cambridge originally, then London, then from London to Cardiff.
Okay.
So again, we went from country to country.
Yes. What prompted the move to Cardiff? Because it's quite unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was just the first and foremost, Cardiff as a city, people really underestimate its value, because they think Wales, they think, look, it's like a smaller country.
Yeah.
It's like one big giant farmland. I'm not going to make any of the standard sheep jokes that people go on about.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll keep it in my back pocket for later.
All right, fine. At the bar, right?
At the bar, yeah. But Cardiff actually is a capital city,
Yeah.
so it's got a lot to offer. There's a lot of potential for growth there.
Yeah.
Of course, COVID stagnated that slightly, but
Yeah.
COVID's had its impact all over the world.
Of course. But what was the reason that took your grandparents, was it, from London to Cardiff?
I think the main catalyst was the opportunity.
Okay.
And just first and foremost, look, a lot of Punjabis will hail from London or Birmingham, and they're big, booming cities, and that's great, But when you're there looking at the job market or the investment market, that's a saturated market.
Okay.
So everybody wants to look for their niche. And Wales itself, Cardiff, other cities in Wales, Swansea, so on and so forth, they've got their own little niches as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, Gurmair, were they entrepreneurs, your grandparents?
So there's always been an entrepreneurial side within my family.
Okay.
And I think it's ingrained with us, really, being from a Indian background, Punjabi, that everybody wants to develop additional income streams. Previously there was always the idea that, look, get some money, save it up, buy a property, let it out.
Of course.
Save it up, buy another property, let it out. But of course now the market's changing and evolving so much.
The world's changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't change with the times, you get left behind.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, do you have family in England as well?
Yes, yeah, we do. We're very fortunate too. Very, very friendly relations with our family in England. I've got family within the Midlands area, within London as well, and the thing is, I notice particularly within the Punjabi community, there's always a very strong, more often than not, this is a strong support network. So you're never too far away from, getting help or getting a bit of advice. And so that's something that I think, what we were mentioning in Punjabi earlier on the morning show, about the cultural aspect of it.
Yeah.
That's one thing about our culture that I would strongly advocate that we don't lose.
Which is interesting, isn't it? So you're 3rd generation British, and like we said, so there's a clear line there of 3 generations, and yet people that come over from India 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 2nd generation have lost their language, certainly lost some of their culture. In fact, they go out of their way to try and fit in and be sort of British and English almost. And again, this morning we were talking about that we need to preserve our heritage, and that we need to preserve our language, and that it's an asset.
Exactly.
Not because your grandparents are telling you to speak Punjabi, right? Because a second language or a third language is a great asset, and certainly to myself, being able to speak Punjabi fluently, and Urdu and Hindi has been a great asset in my commercial life.
Exactly.
And so you're also fluent in Welsh. So we'll come to that. But let's stick to Punjabi, because the message, and we even had a caller this morning, and it wasn't a call-in show, right?
Yes.
To say that how wonderful it was to see a young man speaking in Punjabi. And, and for all of you youngsters that can speak Punjabi, you're welcome to come and take part and co-host the breakfast show with me. We don't get personal, do we?
No. Not too personal anyway.
Yeah. So we won't ask you anything that you don't want to talk about. We'll review the news, etc. So come and show everybody else, the other people, youngsters of your age, that it's actually an asset to speak, what Gurmair called mother tongue. And I also know that a lot of people, second generation, will say, well, I don't speak Punjabi. It's not my mother tongue because I was born here. So English is my mother tongue. But you still said that word, ma boli.
Yes.
Right? Mother is a very special word, isn't it?
Exactly.
So again, for our viewers, why do you still consider Punjabi as your mother tongue?
I think, look, first and foremost, it depends on each individual. Everybody will have their idea, and I make no criticism of an individual saying, look, I was born and brought up here.
Of course.
So I initially identify myself as being British, or British Indian, or British Pakistani, or British Bangladeshi. However, for example, if I could give you the analogy of a pack of cards, you'll have obviously your ace, you'll have your king, you'll have your joker. Being able to speak another language, having knowledge of another culture, being able to communicate with a litany of people, and particularly if you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to develop an entrepreneurial business, you've got an ace in your patta there, and you've got to use that ace.
Yeah.
So what's the point of having something that you've got access to and not utilizing that?
Yes.
So for me, I was always enthusiastic and really enjoyed learning about my culture, other cultures, and it is incumbent upon the individual. It is, of course, an amalgam of your upbringing, but what your thoughts are. But I think, look, if you've got the opportunity, do it. What's that saying? God loves a trier. So let's go for it.
And it's culture, isn't it? It's you, it's diversity, it's enrichment, it's another language, it's another culture. You're going to be British. You are British. If you've been here 10 odd years, you're British.
Exactly.
For all intents and purposes, right? This is your main residence, so that's who you are.
Yes.
So the thing is that, to take your analogy of cards, don't be the bloody joker.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Be the ace.
Yeah.
And the goods that we have, the richness of culture, and as you said, Harmandir Sahib is the most visited site in the world.
Exactly.
Guinness Book of Records, official, be proud, right? How much gold is on that dome, and in how many places in the world would that be safe? It'd be a fortress, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
It would definitely not be on the outside of a building, would it?
No.
Right? So it says something about what goes on. And the amazing thing about Harmandir Sahib, and the last 2 times I've been to India, I haven't been able to go, unfortunately, but the place is just so busy all day long, isn't it? You can go at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's busy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah? Do you know the numbers? I've got something like 100,000 a day in my head. Is it more than that, do you know?
I don't know confirmed statistics, but I know there was circa 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Because I was watching a documentary previously about the langar that is made there 24/7.
Yes.
And they're talking about a kitchen. It's the world's largest kitchen.
That's right.
So they feed sometimes up to 120,000 individuals.
Incredible.
In one day.
Yeah.
What other place in the world can do that?
Who would be capable?
Exactly.
What religion you know, the richest company in the world couldn't
Yeah.
take that kind of task on.
No.
You know,
Exactly.
and actually succeed at that.
No.
So that's almost 1 million people every single week,
Exactly.
and we feed them all.
Yeah. That's it.
So how can you not have pride in who we actually are and where we hail from?
And that's, look, one of the key components of having pride in terms of where you're from. If you look at that element of it, just that alone. You mentioned the companies. A lot of companies will have the skills to do that, but will they have the will? No, they won't.
No chance.
There's no. Having the skill is one thing, but within the Halmanda said, and it's something that is a very fundamental tenet of Sikhi, is having the will to do it.
Yes.
You've got to want to do it.
Absolutely.
And so for me, look, whenever somebody sees you or you're introduced to somebody, inevitably the question will come, oh, so where do you hail from originally, or where are you from? If you can answer that question confidently, I think firstly it puts that person allows that person to view you in a different light, because they say, look, this guy knows where he's from, and inevitably it catalyses the thought that he knows where he's going, or she knows where she's going.
And that's the other thing we spoke about.
Yes.
If you don't know where you came from, how the hell are you going to work out where you're going to go?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, you know, people will respect you. Right? Nobody wants to be the same anymore, do they?
No.
You know, a while ago it was about fitting in.
Yes.
Now it's about being an individual.
Yeah.
And so the richness of our culture, you know, and as you said, you know, it's incumbent upon us to learn that, to be able to display that. You know, I interviewed Ravi Singh Baji from Khalsa
Hanji,
a
yes.
little while back, and he was saying that what he saw for the Sikhs in the future was the role of running the world's charities.
Yes.
Right? Because there's nobody that gives what our community gives.
No, not the volume,
No.
and certainly not with the amount of care as well. If you look at it most recently, particularly with Ravi Singh's work as well,
Yes.
even when the lorry drivers were stranded, I believe it was Canterbury area.
That's right. That's right.
What other religion goes to help a litany of individuals from all different backgrounds, all castes, all creeds? And then, you know, things like that, you've got to take that on board.
That's right.
Even from take it away from the social and talk about a more religious aspect, if you look at the ninth Guru, Nove Padsha, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, which other religious leader would be willing to sacrifice his own life,
That's right.
not to save his own faith, but to save the faith
Somebody
of another?
else's. That's correct. That's correct. He was beheaded for that.
Exactly.
In Delhi?
In Chandni Chowk, where there's
Yes.
a Gurdwara there, Seesganj.
Yes. So, you know, it makes my spine tingle when I hear those things.
Exactly.
But the thing is, we're not very good at telling the world of those things, are we?
No.
Right? You know, we just don't seem to be able to reach out across to the world and tell them what a wonderful religion Sikhi actually is.
Exactly, yeah.
And coming back to the lorry drivers, you know, the government of this country, right, didn't think of that.
No.
None of the so-called big charities of this country that get millions and millions of pounds from our government,
Yes.
of taxpayers' money, couldn't go out there and think, you know what, those lorry drivers are stranded and they're hungry,
Yeah.
let's feed them. It took little religion like Sikhi
Yeah,
and
exactly.
a man like Ravi Singh to say, you know what, those guys are hungry. They're our
Yeah.
brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
Let's go and feed them.
Exactly.
So I think Langar is Sikhi's gift
Yes.
to humankind, and long may it continue. And we see that work expanding out, don't we? You know, we see outreach programs like Middle Langar Seva.
Yes.
You know, these guys are going out, setting up kitchens in markets
Yeah.
and things like that in the evenings and packing food. And we see hundreds of people,
Yeah.
you know, giving up their time, professionals going out cooking and standing in the cold. And so we now not only can you go to the Gurdwara and be fed, but we're actually going out to where people
Yeah.
necessarily wouldn't come to the Gurdwara
Exactly.
for food. And we're outreaching, aren't we?
Exactly. Midlands Langar Seva, for example.
Yeah.
They're going out of their way
That's right.
to go and find individuals who are in need.
Yes.
Even within Cardiff as well, within our city centre, there's a few programs there, again, run by Sikhs,
Yes.
where they've allocated a very specific time and a place where anybody who's looking to have a warm meal, a free meal, can come and collect that. And as I said earlier, these are people from all different faiths, all
That's
different
right.
backgrounds.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
it's the simplest thing, roti pani, and it's a universal currency. Everybody recognises it, and it's not just the warmth of the meal, it's just the compassion for another individual. Sikhi fundamental concept is having daya, having compassion, and you know, I think we don't see any. I've never seen stories like this, particularly within the UK. There's great charities within the UK, well run, very successful. But again, like you said, it takes fifth largest religion in the world, something like Sikhi,
Yes.
to go and catalyse things like that.
Yeah, but you see our charities, like Middle Langar Seva Society, run by Randir Singh Baji and people like my good friend Ginda Basra and Rajit Dhaliwal in Leicester.
Yes.
So they give up a lot of their time to run these. The thing is, they don't have this hierarchical structure like a normal large charity in this country.
Yeah.
So they run much more like corporations, aren't they?
Exactly.
Right? So the MD sits there and he pays himself the kind of salary that he says he would get as CEO of a normal commercial company. The normal commercial company doesn't get tax breaks, doesn't get money from the government, does it?
No, exactly.
Right? So, it is what it is. But wonderful work that our charities are doing, wonderful work that Sikhi does. And I think the thing is, for me, meeting you gives me hope that we won't lose it all. That youngsters will come and be interested and find out and keep the language alive. Much like, in your own country, Welsh is something that they are fighting to keep, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a fundamental part of, now if you look at the legal system, how they're trying to embed Welsh law to have their own identity. And just to correct something you said there briefly, I'm currently conversational within Welsh.
Yes.
So I can't speak it as a native tongue,
Okay.
but I'll get there soon. And that's with myself. I'm no particularly special individual. It's just having the willpower to go and try things. You're not going to lose anything if you try and you're not successful that day. But dust yourself off and try again.
Yes, yeah. And I think from a preservation of Punjabi point of view,
yes,
we would do well, wouldn't we, to look at examples like Wales trying to preserve their own language and fighting to keep it and having a real pride about it.
Yes.
We're almost embarrassed, aren't we, of Punjabi? And that's the problem with it.
Yeah.
And I believe now that a lot of the schools in the Punjab no longer teach Punjabi, they're teaching Hindi instead.
This is a very fundamental point, and we were discussing this as well previously. Yes. If you look at the Democratic Republic of India, all these states, Gujarat, so on and so forth. Gujarat, for example, the first language is Gujarati.
That's right.
Within Maharashtra, it's Marathi.
That's right.
But in Punjab, Hindi is the first language. And it was a very salient point. It was raised by Singh ji on basics of Sikhi.
Yes.
God rest his soul. So I don't understand why we're not persevering and trying to ensure that is embedded within the next generation.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that it's going to remain.
What I see, Gurmair, is I think we're embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think we, somehow we think whether the media sold it to us, I don't know what's happened, but we ourselves, especially in the Punjab, don't have pride in our own language, pride in our own Punjabi culture. It is unique. And what Sikhi and the Punjabis have done is unique, just like what the Gujaratis have done.
Yes.
Every state has a unique story and it enriches the fabric of every society, doesn't it?
Yes.
But once the language is gone, it's gone, isn't it? It disappears. Hindi is the national language of India. And English, it's official second and commercial language of the country. So it's important that you should know that language.
100%.
Right? Because there's thousands of languages in India. So it's very important that we can all, as Indians, communicate with each other.
Yes.
But then you have your regional dialect and your regional your language. Just like, every Welsh person, I imagine, that speaks Welsh also speaks English.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but they haven't just gone and replaced it in schools, have they?
No.
Right? But that's a failure of our leadership, isn't it?
So, The issue is we've created such a, within various organisations, there's such a vast pyramid type hierarchy where you've got someone at the top, then you've got so many levels.
Yes.
How are things trickling down? By the time they trickle down to everyday people, you know, we may have started with the ability to pass on the language to 10 individuals. By the time it's trickled down for all the layers, because of the funds and so on and so forth, it's maybe going to reach 5 people.
Yes.
So it's something we've really got to catalyse ourselves, I think. And now there's so many different avenues that you can learn more about Punjabi. The internet is a wonderful thing, used correctly, of course.
Goes without saying.
Exactly. You've
Coming
got
from a
social
lawyer?
media.
Good.
Yes, exactly.
Full
That's it.
disclosure.
Full disclosure. Full disclosure. So the social media is great as well. There's loads of organisations as well. Nanak Naam, Basics of Sikhi.
Yes.
And they're helping individuals. They're explaining things in Punjabi, but they're also explaining things within English. And I'll speak from my own personal experience as well. I was born and brought up here, so naturally my first thought will be within English. But then when I need to communicate in Punjabi, obviously it goes into your head, you translate that, and then you put out what you're saying, and you'll respond in Punjabi.
Yes.
So this is why, if you go online, look at your own learning style. Some people learn by listening to things online, by listening to podcasts or audio. Some people learn by reading things. There's an absolute plethora of different resources out there, and take advantage of it. Use it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yes.
So why not go out there and do it? And from a practical point of view, if you're going for a various job or you're looking for something within a different sector, having another language skill is only going to benefit you, to be frank with you.
And then when you look at India itself,
Yeah.
90% of Google's workforce is in India. 90% of Facebook's workforce is in India.
Yes.
So, they're based around Mumbai, so that'd be Hindi and Marathi
Yes.
and English. But the fact is, you have definitely got an advantage. If you're working for that type of company, having an Indian background and being able to speak any language would be a huge advantage over somebody that couldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that as an employer, if somebody's come from an Indian background, you'd actually expect them to actually know something about their own culture and their own country.
Indeed. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned a point, a very, very valid one, with outsourcing and people outsourcing to India, Hyderabad, Chennai, so on and so forth.
Yes.
As soon as the word outsourcing comes up, 9 out of 10 businessmen and businesswomen will think India straight away. So if you think about it, if you want to be employed and you want to take up a role there, what a great niche to have, that you could communicate with the Punjabis in Punjabi.
Yes.
Then you can communicate with the individuals who don't speak any Punjabi in English.
Yes. So I visited the Apollo Hospital in Chennai for some tests.
Great.
And I was, my consultant was, I forget his name now, a gentleman from Leeds General Hospital. And he'd gone over and moved to Chennai. And we had a fantastic conversation, obviously, because he was very familiar with English. And the 10-minute, 20-minute consultation turned into a couple of hours. We went for a meal in the evening. And it was really interesting because I said, why did you come back? And he said, do you know something, Kam? We don't have the equipment in the UK for the National Health Service that we have at our disposal here.
Yeah.
So over the course of one day, I had 3 tests done, which I needed. So he said, you could not get them done even privately in the UK on the same day and get the results the next day. So he said, I feel now I'm back home in India, which is much nicer.
Yes.
Excuse me. And he said, I'm able to serve my community, but I've actually got the equipment at my disposal.
Handy.
Right? I've got a friend of mine who's a dentist who's gone back and set up a practice in Mumbai. And same thing, he said, we cannot buy this equipment in the UK. So this idea of somehow, because we come from a little village in the Punjab and we go there and we think that's what India is.
Yes.
That's our homeland and we should respect that. But that's not the India of today.
No, and that's a very, very common misconception. I was reading a stat recently as well that within India, within a population of over 1 billion people, 95% of the land is owned by 5% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
So just to go off on a slight tangent in terms of what you said, there's so much technology available within India. There's so many resources, and the wealth that certain individuals will have over there will blow certain things out of the water completely. But it's just a case of how that wealth and those resources are obviously spread, which is something that, maybe we can help with, being from this country, going over to India, utilising our skill set.
Yes.
But also we need to work with the people who are over there as well.
Yes.
Because they are our own people, regardless of what you say.
They always will be.
And they always will be, exactly. Just like within the UK, if you go and help, for example, you name a charity, the Salvation Army, they are inevitably our own people, because we are British.
Yes.
We are all products of globalisation, and we should embrace that. We shouldn't deviate or deter away from that. And I know you mentioned a point about being slightly embarrassed as well. I think there's that. I wouldn't say it's just embarrassment. People are always of that view. Is this the right time to put a bit of Punjabi in? Is this the right time? I think, you know what? If you're confident in where you're from, confident in your knowledge of your culture, then just go. Main thing is be yourself, because there's nothing better to be than yourself, and it comes across in the best possible way.
And if you think about Punjabi transitioning, just think about Bhangra. It's international now, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Which community haven't you seen on YouTube? Which race haven't you seen doing Bhangra to something or other, right? So if we have the confidence to do that, then the language follows, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I had the good fortune to meet some Nigerians whilst I was in Dubai.
Okay.
And they spoke fluent Hindi.
Wow.
And so I'm just, what? But, apparently Bollywood is huge in Nigeria.
It is.
And so they learnt Hindi from watching all the movies.
Yes.
And they were very fluent. And I said, how does it help? He said, obviously, in Dubai, very large parts of the population are from Pakistan and India. So Hindi was a big, big advantage to them when seeking employment.
Yeah, and you can't get a better example than that. It's funny you mentioned that. There was a gentleman who I was introduced to recently as well. He's from Ghana originally. And as soon as I met him and he found out that I was of Indian origin, he said straight away, "Oh, Amitabh Bachchan, Amitabh Bachchan,
Yes.
Sunny Deol, Dharmendra."
Yes.
This is a gentleman from Ghana, and he was telling me that as their treat on a Sunday evening, their family treat, they could have a choice of watching, a British or an American film or a Hindi film, and more often than not, they'd go and choose the Hindi film.
Incredible.
So, and it's just, look, Indians globally, I think we don't realise how much reach we have.
Yes.
Or if we do, we don't utilise it as well as we could do. So I think whatever you are, like I said, embrace it, and use everything you can to your advantage.
I think the problem is sometimes we're getting in a bit of a bubble, don't we?
Yeah.
And we can't see, out of that. And that's what kind of happens. So we live in a tiny little country, and we think the whole world is that tiny.
Yeah.
There's a whole big world out there. Celebrate our culture, celebrate your language, celebrate your background, celebrate who you are, celebrate being a Sikh. It's a wonderful, wonderful religion, and learn about it.
Yes.
And it's wonderful to have somebody like yourself, as an ambassador for our language, as an ambassador for our culture, and having some pride in who we actually are. Because if we respect ourselves, only then will anybody else respect us, right? So carry that with you. And, if you're struggling in terms of, identity, which is something that we're all seeking, just read our history. There's so much, and it's so rich. And it's young as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Sikh is very young as a religion. And, so it's a very modern take on what religion should be.
Yes. And I think inevitably, like I was referring to this earlier, wherever you go, people are going to ask you questions, where you're from, where your family originally from. Individuals will more often than not, make a decision or take a view on something without doing the due diligence required. So if you can, educate somebody else, for example, now, unfortunately, we've been reading about all the events in America at the FedEx building with the mass shootings and so on and so forth. A key reason, Sikhism is the third most targeted religion out of all of the world religions. Judaism first, then Islam, then Sikhism. And that's in spite of it being only the fifth largest religion.
Yes.
And the reason why it's the third most targeted for hate crimes is because a lot of people don't know about Sikhism, or they don't know enough. Of course, after the tragedy of 9/11, immediately the association with the turban was Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, huge tragedies in the Sikh community.
Exactly.
Or any community, nothing is right. But to be mistaken for something?
Yes.
But the thing is this, that it's incumbent upon you to educate the host community. If you go to another country or another city, it's up to you to go forward and explain to people who you are. It's not their job. It's not the job of the British public to learn who we are.
Exactly.
It's our job to teach them who we are.
Yes.
And therefore gain their respect. Because as human beings, there's not actually that much difference, is there, between us?
No.
No religion says go and kill somebody or harm somebody or steal.
No.
Right? No culture says that. So underneath, our basic needs are very similar. We want safety and security. We want to look after our family. We want to work hard.
Exactly.
And that's all there is to it.
Exactly.
Right? So, but that's really interesting, and I hope that's helped our viewers, parents and youngsters alike, to get those kind of views. And what I wanted to do is, we haven't got a lot of time. If there's any callers that want to call, it's not a phone-in show. So if there's anybody that wants to ask any questions from Gurmair, because we're not going to have him very often, all the way from Cardiff, you're quite welcome to do that. So, Gurmair, you're in the legal profession.
Hanji, yeah.
So you're called an advocate.
Yes.
So what is that? Is that something that's in Wales, or tell us? So there's solicitors, there's barristers, and sometimes we call them lawyers. And there's this term now, advocate. So can you explain what the differences are and between those different titles?
Yes, so within my room in particular, I completed the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Then afterwards, I wanted to cross-qualify as a solicitor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just waiting for that now to all be confirmed, which should be imminent or very soon.
So then you become a barrister?
Yes.
So cross-qualification means just that, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right.
To be frank with you, it is a part of the English legal system and the Welsh legal system.
Okay.
Because they are inevitably amalgamated. What the role of an advocate is very similar to what a barrister would do, or a solicitor. It's just the various rights of audience and who you can reach.
Okay.
You notice for example, within India, there is no differentiation between a solicitor and a barrister.
Okay.
The legal professionals, they're all called advocates.
Okay.
And that basically enables them to obviously go and prepare their case and then go and represent their clients at court as well.
Yes.
So it's various terms that are used now, and this country is very unique as well, particularly within the legal system, is that even if we look at countries like the US, it's 50 states, it's so much larger than the UK.
Yes.
But even they'll have attorneys, they will have trial attorneys who will specialise. But even if we look at the specialisms, individuals, there's a common misconception amongst lawyers that if you are a lawyer, you should know every single thing about the law. And you should know it going back to the 1800s to 2021. But like doctors, like IFAs, everybody will seek to specialise within a particular field.
Yes.
So for example, if you're a personal injury lawyer, you want to specialise within personal injury law, whiplash claims, so on and so forth. If you're a doctor and you want to specialise within becoming a neurosurgeon, you'll want to obviously specialise within that field. And then obviously, of course, you'll do your relevant studies on the brain and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And like with an IFA, to use a really common example, some people specialise within pensions, some people specialise within mortgages.
That's right.
So I think it's one of the things that everybody wants to find their niche. So I think you find your niche and do something that you're passionate about as well. And then it just brings us on to the other aspect that we're talking about, is that it's always good to have another string to your bow.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you can use it on the business side within your different roles.
Yeah.
You can obviously, within a legal profession, individuals do things like they become arbitrators or mediators again, which also helps as well. People go and work within compliance. So I think if you can do that, then more power to you.
Yeah.
An additional point is what you mentioned earlier about, having a bit of diversity, not only within your work life, but also having that within your income stream. Because I know it's been mentioned in the last few weeks as well, that within the current economic climate, we've not seen anything, since anything pre-COVID that's damaged the economy and potentially could have an ongoing impact in terms of damaging the economy as severe as this. We were talking this morning in Punjabi about the railway system. It's predicted that for the next 4 years, there's going to be 60% of the foot flow within the national rail in comparison to what there was pre-COVID. So again, brings on the aspect of job security is not quite as secure as individuals previously thought.
I think job security is something that we hope,
Yeah.
but in reality isn't always there. So 2 million people during the pandemic have started a side business, a side hustle. So I think the idea, and we had Vinay Palmer here last week, who is in your profession, but also is an entrepreneur in a network marketing business. And I can tell you reliably tell you that I know that he makes much more money out of his side hustle than he does out of the legal profession.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But the thing is that you see what happens is that we're a very safe community. So our parents guide us towards the safe professions, accountancy, medicine, law, which are great, very admirable. But those things are changing now. And, the average millionaire has 7 different sources of income. So if you're working today with one job and one source of income, and the rest of the time is spending, watching other people make money on telly, right? Other people make money whilst they're playing your favourite football team, spending £100 on a nylon or polyester shirt that they wear, right? That's not my idea of how life should be spent. So there's many, many ways that you can do that. And I know that you're an advocate of multiple streams of income. So it's very important today to think slightly longer, slightly out of the box, because the world has changed. And so, we're coming out of this lockdown, hopefully. We keep our fingers crossed. But don't think that the world is going to go back to where it was just 1 year ago. Because there are certain laws that now have been enacted which will not be taken away. Right?
Exactly.
They won't just crumble after COVID's gone, will they? So, because successive government always seeks control.
Yes.
That's the job, to control its population. So there's nothing easier than to pass laws when we're vulnerable or when there's no debate going on. There's been no opposition effectively in this country during the pandemic. The opposition have just agreed with everything that the government's done.
Yes.
Right? So what that tells us is that there are certain laws that have been passed that we don't really even know about, that have gone on because there's no debate, and the press has been covering COVID basically and nothing else. So things have changed and things will remain different. And of course, the cost of this pandemic, I've heard a figure put at over £1 trillion.
Wow.
Right? By the time we're done. There was a time when 1/3 of the working population was effectively working for the government in terms of the fact that it was furloughed and the government was actually paying the salaries of those people. So all that money's got to be clawed back at some point, right?
Exactly.
So corporation tax for the future has already gone up, and personal taxation, etc. And then the other thing that really makes me feel uneasy at the moment, Gurmair, is the press reporting these huge increases in the jobs vacancies, huge increases in the growth that we've got. It's because we had, our economy was decimated by 20-30%. So now when you look at this short-term picture of the last 6 months, oh wow, unemployment is going down. Yes, it is, because it went up to 3/4, I think it was 1.75 million at one point,
Yes.
5% of the working population. So yes, as lockdown eases, there are going to be fewer more vacancies out there. But what happens is those figures have fallen off the edge now, haven't they? And the press are able to report that. Where do you see the economy, and where do you see jobs, and where do you see employment in this country?
So inevitably, there were certain businesses who profited from the current COVID crisis, i.e. your courier drivers and your the delivery services, because there was a record high with that. But as you said, I think that at present we can't be in a position where we are just seeking to rely upon a sole income. And it pains me to say that, but I think that those days are well and truly gone.
Definitely. And
when you're trying something new, when you're trying different trading options, different businesses, as you said, quote unquote, different side hustles, there are, and it's not a negative within our community, but there are always going to be individuals who will portray their own negativities upon you. Just use a really clear example. We were discussing it earlier. There was an interview recently with Jay-Z. Now he's a billionaire now, I believe. When he started out rapping and making records, he was telling me his uncles who helped raise him said, "What are you doing? You can't sell 1 million records." Look at him now. He's sold 1 million records about 1 million times.
Yes.
So what I would say is a lot of people, they do it out of love, and it is a safety net. They want to keep you safe. They want to look within the Indian community. There are a lot of families who will want to wrap their children up within cotton wool, and I don't criticize that at all. I'm probably one of those children, to be frank with you. But I think you need to go and try and see what's out there, and that's certainly not me trying to advise anybody to go and get 100k and go and put a bet on or something like that, because that is just throwing money away. But look at other streams of income. There's trading options out there. There's various investment options as well. Of course. There's various currency exchange. But again, do your due diligence, and certainly dip your toe in the water, even if it's just the little toe. But just see where it goes. I can't say any more clearer than that.
Yeah, lovely saying that I really enjoy, which is. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees, right? So if we're wrapping our children up in cotton wool, the outside world doesn't care.
Yes.
So they will have to face the outside world at some point, and the softer they are, the less the ability to actually offer any kind of resistance when there are issues. But look, we're a wonderful community. We punch way above our weight, right? And we've got people like yourself who advocate, keeping our language, keeping our culture, and are proud of that fact. And you can see that. We've literally spent the last 2 days together.
Yes.
And, that's evident from all our meetings and everything that we've discussed. Because we've met a few people, haven't we?
Yeah, we've met some colourful characters.
Yeah. And but time waits for no man. Yeah. So we are at the end of another show. So you got more time than most because we had the morning and this evening. So that's the end of another episode of the Kam Johal Show. I'm really happy that you've been able to enjoy what we had today with Gurmair. And so thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Keep us up to date with your journey. Come back and see us. So we will have another guest next week on the Kam Johal Show at 7 o'clock. You can join me for breakfast at 8 o'clock next Thursday. Until then, have a fantastic week and enjoy what little sunshine we get, because May's been an absolute washout and we have noticed that today. And enjoy yourselves, have a great time. Thank you very much for watching, and Jianu Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal.